computer. Welcome to Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll, the podcast where we explore the art and science of talent optimization, business strategy, leadership, and growth, all with a little fun along the way. I'm your host, Meri Stockwell, and today we're kicking off season 3. Yay! We're diving into a topic that's essential for high-performing teams and thriving workplaces: psychological safety. What is it? Why does it matter? And how can leaders cultivate it in their organizations? Joining me today is my dear friend, Hermence Matsotsa. She is a global intercultural connector and expert in leadership, talent development, and organizational culture. Hermence brings a wealth of knowledge and practical insights on how to foster environments where employees feel safe to speak up, contribute, and innovate. Hermence, welcome to the show. I'm happy you're here. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to be with you here, Meri. It's just, I've been waiting for a long time for you to invite me, so I'm excited to be here.
Yay. Yay. So you're doing good today?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. The weather's, kind of air, but, it's all about the energy inside the room. So my energy is great then.
Awesome. Mine too.
Yeah.
All right, let's get going.
Yes.
Hermence, let's start with the basics.
Okay.
Can you explain what psychological safety is and why it's critical for today's workplaces?
Okay, yes. So again, thank you, Meri, for inviting me to speak today. Dr. Amy Edmondson, she's a Harvard Business School professor as well as a leading expert in leadership teams. And this idea of how can organizations build better, stronger leadership teams that understand how teams function. And so in her research in 1999, she coined the term psychological safety and for high performing teams. And what happened during her research, she found that this concept of psychological safety, which really refers to creating an environment where individuals feel safe to speak up, share ideas, take risks, and really admit to mistakes without fear of punishment or humiliation, was key to successful high performing teams. And so psychological safety is not just about being nice, right? A lot of times I hear people saying, oh, does it mean that, I'm responsible for people's mental health? No, it's not about that. It's about creating a culture where there's open dialogue, there's learning, where people feel safe to learn, to contribute, to challenge the status quo, and to understand that together as teams, when they have respect for each other, but at the same time willing to, challenge ideas and not people, then they can better perform and innovate. And so really it's the foundation of innovation, collaboration, as well as how teams continue to be resilient, especially during these times. So in essence, that is what psychological safety is. Why it's critical? Simply because we know that high performing teams rely on a safety, right, within itself, right? And because high performing teams are all about engagement, creativity, and problem solving, if there's no safety in that, then people don't contribute, will keep their mouths shut basically, and will decrease innovation. And so, enough research has shown, and one of the research, Google's Project Aristotle research that was done, in addition to other research, but this one in particular showed that the number one predictor of a team's success is psychological safety, how safe they feel to be able to contribute. And so, having said that, when there's lack of psychological safety, it leads to employee disengagement. You have individuals who not only fear saying something, but they fear sticking up and being an ally to other people, right? And helping. And then also leads to burnout, turnover, and essentially missed opportunities for companies who are seeking to succeed and innovate. So that in itself is the reason why it's very critical.
It- That makes so much sense, Hermence. In my experience working with leaders on talent optimization, I've seen firsthand how a lack of psychological safety can hinder innovation and engagement. When people feel safe, they're more likely to contribute their best ideas.
Right.
That's where the magic happens.
Yeah, very much so. And then people, there's this part about what psychologically safe environments does. Not only are they allowed to contribute, but they feel free challenging the ideas that are on the table, challenging the status quo. And that is important to get people to like think outside the box sometimes on regarding certain ideas. And so there are so many benefits to having creating psychologically safe rooms, meetings, environments, places, because as we already said, it boosts innovation. It enhances the sense of collaboration of, I'm willing to work with you despite our differences, right? We can work together. It improves performance. People feel good about what they're doing, and therefore they're going to do more of that. They're bringing their full selves to work to do what's asked of them. And then it reduces this work stress that we too often have because of external factors beyond just the job, but the personalities that we often have to deal with. Helps to reduce that because everyone's respecting each other, right? And understanding the importance of creating this environment.
Wow, that's just so powerful. So, what are some of the most common misconception leaders have about psychological safety?
Oh, wow. There's definitely a lot, but there's five common misconceptions that I've seen as I coach and mentor these leaders who are seeking to create this psychologically safe spaces. One of them is that for them, it means avoiding tough conversations. But the truth really is that psychological safety is about creating a space where there's open, constructive dialogue with respect and not really avoiding conflict, right? So it's not avoiding the tough conversations, it's knowing how to have the tough conversations and understanding that you have to create that environment for it to happen. It's so, often they also say that it reduces accountability. So people won't be accountable for their actions. In the contrary, it really increases accountability because it encourages ownership, right? When you know that what you said, you were in a space where what you said, was really taken into consideration. It may not have been accepted, but it was taken into consideration. And more, you learn from your mistakes because you don't fear making those mistakes. You know someone's going to jump in and help you as opposed to criticize and humiliate you, right? Another misconception is about emotions, right? You know, they say, psychological safety is about just mental health and people's emotions, and it's not really embedded in performance. And that again, it makes it seem as though the two don't go together. People have to be in a healthy mental state of mind in order to better perform. And so psychological safety really drives innovation, collaboration, and high performance, not just well-being. Right. And then the fourth one I often hear is about once it's established, in essence, once psychological safety is created, it's done. I don't have to do anything else. Like, oh, I created this environment, so everything should be perfect. And the truth is that it requires an ongoing effort. It's continuous, right? It's something that is part of your daily action. It's consistent through whatever leadership actions you have, as well as how you go by reinforcing certain attitudes and perspectives within your teams. And then not the last one, but the fifth one I would say is that it really slows decision making. I've had leaders say, well, if I'm concentrating on creating a safe space, it's going to take forever to make decisions. But in reality, it prevents costly mistakes, right? Because you're ensuring that there's diverse voices and insights that are being heard. And then when people notice gaps and mistakes, they're willing to speak on it because they know that you, as a leader, you're willing to listen. And therefore, although the decision process may be slower than you believe, it is going to be the right decision at the end of the day. So those are just some of the misconceptions, but oftentimes once they go through my coaching and the training, they understand that, you know, what they believe to be true oftentimes is just their own beliefs, but they're not rooted in psychological safety and how it's created.
Those are such important distinctions. You know, psychological safety isn't about lowering standards. It's about empowering people to take risks and learn
Exactly.
from mistakes. It's
Exactly.
that balance of support and challenge that helps teams truly excel, right?
Right, right. And believing that it can happen, right? And believing that it's a continuous act. You know, it's the foundation really of a lot of things. It's the foundation of a collaborative team.
So well said. Can you share some practical strategies leaders can use to build psychological safety in their teams?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, let me see. There are about 5 practical strategies that I share with leaders that I feel like leaders can like learn and then really put into action, right? And I find that it's fairly simple. Now it takes more work to be able to implement, but the first one is to model vulnerability and transparency, right? Admit your mistakes. Yes, you're a leader, but you're also a team member, right? You're also human, right? So you will make mistakes. Ask for feedback. Your voice shouldn't be the only voice in the room, right? Be open to stepping back and hearing other people and show that learning is valued, that people that you're there to learn as well from other people as much as they are there to learn from you. And so really being modern vulnerability and transparency and saying clearly, like, I want to learn from you. I believe you, the answers may lie within you, right? And celebrating people who really have the courage and feel comfortable enough to share. Another is encourage open dialogue, right? Create spaces where voices are are heard. And people feel like their voice is being heard. So you can do this by just asking a simple question. What are we missing here? Like, what else can we add to this conversation? One of the things I love is when someone's speaking to me and I may not understand, I say, tell me more. So then it opens the door for people to feel like I am truly interested, which I am, and that I want to know what is inside their head and their thoughts, right? So, or even you can ask, what's your perspective on this topic? Another strategy is reinforcing accountability, right? And with support. So don't just say, I have an open door policy and you can come in whenever, right? Or letting, you see something, you witness something happen and you don't hold people accountable for their actions when you know they weren't right. One was disrespecting another. So hold yourself accountable and hold other people accountable by ensuring that mistakes are seen as learning opportunities instead of shunning someone. Really, you know, say, yes, this mistake was done. However, how can we learn from it? What could we do better? Instead of offering these punishable offenses for human errors, and so that's really important. I also say that address exclusion and microaggressions. And what I mean by exclusion is, as a leader, if you see that there's one member of your team that seems to be excluded from conversations, from projects by other members, be the leader and say, this is not how our team operates, right? So intervene when necessary and foster a culture where really everyone feels valued and heard and feel as though they are present, and in their presence, others are willing to see them, right? And be with them. And that's really important. And when microaggressions happen, you nip it in the bud, right? You let people know that you will not tolerate that in the workplace. And also you not be the person who's committing those microaggressions as well. And if it's being vulnerable, part of being vulnerable is also when people tell you you committed this microaggression and I didn't feel good about it. Be open in saying that, yes, and how can I do better? And then the last one that I think is fairly practical is normalizing risk taking and innovation. I have yet to meet a leader who is not ready to have their team innovate more, right? And pushing that, right? But in innovation, it takes risk taking. You have to create an environment where people can take risks, and you have to normalize that even if the risk doesn't, the outcome of the risk taking is not ideal or what you had hoped for, right? But you have to normalize that, and you have to reward curiosity and experimentation, because that's what risk taking really is, even when things don't go planned. So those are just 5 of the strategies that I really think leaders can start off with when creating or seeking to create this environment for high performing teams.
Those strategies are gold, Hermence. I mean,
Thank
really.
you. Thank
I
you.
found that when leaders model vulnerability and genuinely listen to their teams, trust skyrockets.
Oh, ex- yeah. I mean, it allows people to see those leaders as human. Like, like you're just like me in some sense, and I can trust you and come to you with my concerns and my ideas, and it makes people feel seen. Yeah,
It's amazing how small intentional actions can create a big impact.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, very much so.
Uh, Hermance, I know that you've worked for a variety of organizations across different cultures. How
Yeah.
does cultural context influence psychological safety?
Oh, wow. What a great question, Mary. Yes, I've worked in a lot of cultures, traveled and lived in many countries. And one thing I realized is that it's not a one size fits all. It doesn't look the same. In fact, it looks different in different cultures, different organizational cultures. And so, culture really, the cultural context really shapes how people see and view and understand psychological safety. So there's this, in a lot of cultures, there's this hierarchy and authority, concept where in a lot of cultures, challenging authority is discouraged. It is, this idea of you challenging the status quo, challenging what the leader is saying, that's enough to get you fired in a lot of cultures, right? So if you're a leader in a culture where you know this is the case, right? You have the cultural intelligence to understand that this is the case. You must actively invite input, right? To ensure that all voices are heard. You must actively ask someone to contribute or find strategies that allow people, if they're not going to contribute verbally, but maybe you ask everyone to write something down on a piece of paper anonymously, right? And then you put it in a box and then you pull out ideas and then you start discussing that. But you need to understand how the culture that you're, the organizational culture, the country's culture, wherever you are, how that impacts how people choose to show up and how they choose to contribute and innovate and address you as a leader. Also, communication styles. Some cultures are direct, where others prioritize harmony, where others, only certain people based on sometimes gender, sometimes on age, or are asked to speak, right? Or feel comfortable speaking or communicating. Sometimes certain words, vocabulary words, right, have value and meaning that show preferences. And so psychological safety means creating a safe space for safe expression as well in ways that feel natural for individuals. So again, it's being able to brainstorm ways that you could communicate so you're not putting people on the spot, but at the same time they feel like they're contributing, right? They're saying what's on their heart, and they're letting you know, they're giving ideas as to how to innovate and how to create a safer space. There's also risk and failure perception. I've been in cultures where the idea of failing at something is seen as a weakness. So you have leaders who dig in their heels, even if they're wrong. And everybody knows they're wrong, right? But nobody will say that that leader was wrong, or nobody, will see, people will work around the wrong just so that, that person's not seen as weak. And so normalizing learning from mistakes and encouraging innovation is really important. So again, with that vulnerability, but realizing that when you demonstrate that you've made mistakes in the past, right? And that actually mistakes are a way for us to learn and to do better, and that comes in. And then also another thing that's different is this idea of inclusion and belonging in a lot of cultural contexts. So cultural backgrounds really affect how people feel comfortable speaking up. And often leaders need to understand and intentionally amplify diverse voices. And so one of the things I used to do as a leader is I would rotate who would start the conversation, right? I would rotate who would facilitate the conversation. That meant me taking, staying, taking the back burner and allowing other people to lead. But I would have conversations with those individuals first prior to the meeting to make sure they were comfortable with doing that, right? And that helped to create trust because they trusted me to give them the opportunity to shine, but they also trusted that I would be there to help them. And so that helped to build trust. And in a lot of cultures, it's really, they want to know that you've got their back first and trust them before they go about, showing and caring and really speaking up. So at the end of the day, psychological safety, although it may look different culturally, it is still about creating an environment where people don't fear being themselves, right? And really where everyone feels valued and, or feel as though they have safety in being included, safety in learning, safety in contributing, as well as safety in challenging the status quo when need be. So I know
That's
that was a mouthful, but yes.
it's fascinating. Cultural context really does shape how people perceive safety and communication.
Yes, it does.
I often talk to leaders about the importance of cultural intelligence. Understanding those differences helps create environments where everyone feels valued.
Yeah. And as you said, this cultural intelligence piece is so essential, because what may work for your team, let's say in the United States, is not going to work for your team in China. It's not, or Hong Kong, or Colombia, or wherever, right? Especially for those global leaders. So you have to understand the cultural context, but you still are responsible for creating those psychologically safe environment.
That's right. So as we wrap up, I want to ask you one more question.
Okay.
What's on your heart today when it comes to psychological safety and the work that you do?
Wow. Well, it's not just today. Actually, what's on my heart is like it's every day, I feel like. This idea, especially now during these times, is this idea that psychological safety is not a luxury. It really is a necessity for high performing, high stress, high demanding teams and global teams. What happens too often is that too many talented professionals hold back their ideas out of fear, right? And when that happens, innovation decreases, growth and engagement suffer. And so you have organizations who could thrive and want to thrive, but because they haven't created this environment, they're at a standstill when it comes to their success. And so for me, at the core of the work that I do, I strongly believe that if people feel safe to show up fully, to contribute, to communicate the way that feels natural for them, and to like just be in a space where showing up and being your best is rewarded, that in itself will help organizations like be the best that they can be, right? So, but it really starts with the leadership. And when leadership models that, and then, and teaches team members how to show each other respect, then all of that comes together and you have people who want to go to work. And I always, one of the things I say, psychological safety is not, again, not a one done kind of thing, right? It does happen in stages. And so oftentimes we have this, what we like to call inclusion safety, where people feel valued. You hire them because you believe they could do the job. Now give them the opportunity to do so, right? Value them for the work that they're doing. And then learner safety, knowing that they're not going to know everything, right? At the workplace. Things are forever changing. So people want to learn. So feeling safety or having safety in growth and learning, right? I've worked in organizations where asking to go to a training is seen is like shunned, right? Simply because you asked to do better or be better or get more information. That shouldn't be the case. And then there's stage 3, which we like to call contributor safety, the feeling empowered to share your ideas, to contribute what you know, to contribute to to projects that maybe you've never been part of, but you see it in a different way, right? That we all want to be able to contribute to make things better. And then the last stage, which often is the hardest stage, is the challenger safety, which is challenging the status quo and helping create an environment where people have the courage to question what is happening, question ideas, right? But also be able to come up with solutions to the ideas that they're questioning, to what the challenge is. So for me, daily in my heart, right? I wake up realizing my goal is to really help leaders navigate these stages, create the teams where people feel seen and valued and respected, and empowered to be their best at the highest level. So that is what's on my heart. And for me, not only, is that important because I've lived that life. I've been the leader and I've also been the team member who needed psychological safety. But I think it's important that once we understand how it impacts thriving teams or high performing teams, that we advocate for it, right? We advocate. So I'm also pushing and for people to advocate that psychological safety, trainers and coaches come into the organizations and do the work. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's
Well, thank you for that, Hermence. It's clear that your passion for this work is
yes.
making a real difference. I know a little bit about something about challenging the status quo. I've done that my whole career.
Yes,
I feel
yes.
good in that place.
That's why you and me, we vibe so well.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I think it's so important in all that we do, and not in a disrespectful way, but
Right.
in a way that really creates change.
Creates change, right? And push, there's nothing wrong with pushing the envelope sometimes, right? Because I feel like a lot of the changes and the things we really take it, advantage of today is because someone had the idea and pushed the envelope a little bit and made us believe that it would be good for us. So yeah, very much so.
Uh, and finally, for those who are listening, want to learn more or get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. All you have to do is put, search in the search box, put my name, Hermence Matsotsa. But you could also send me an email at Hermence at ubuntuworkforce.com. So it's fairly simple that way. Or I'm still one of those people. I love to have my phone ring and to actually have a conversation. So my number is 202-421-9184. So yes, feel free to call me And I am open to having consultations just to share a little bit more ideas on how I can support you, not just in psychological safety, but also cultural intelligence and positive intelligence, because though, they build on each other. And I want to be able to help you be the leader that you'd like to be, that global leader. So, yeah, feel free to, email me, search me on LinkedIn, send a message, or pick up the phone and call.
And Hermence and I work on projects sometimes together too. So if you didn't catch all of her information and you want it, reach out to me too. So
Yeah,
thank you so much. It's
thank
wonderful, and I
you.
encourage everyone to reach out and connect with Hermence. She's a wealth of knowledge and insight, and a pretty great friend too.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'd like to leave us all with the South African philosophy of Ubuntu. I am who I am because we all are. And as we strive to be the best, we need to strive together and work together. And I am who I am because we all are.
Thank you.
All
And
right.
that's it for today's episode of Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll. Thank you so much, Hermence, for sharing your wisdom
Welcome.
on psychological safety. If you're
You're
looking to
welcome.
build a team where people feel safe to contribute, innovate, and thrive, start by listening, really listening, and creating a space for voices to be heard. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends who might benefit. You can find Talent Talk and Strategy Stroll on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, keep optimizing, keep strategizing, and keep strolling forward. See you soon.
All right. Take care.
Take care.